Today we are excited. Day. It is a beautiful day. It's a beautiful early morning right here in Seattle, Washington.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Seattle. This is Seattle time, 6 a.m. Welcome all of those who are
all
joining
the people in the house right. Let's see who will be the first one to say where they are from.
Hello, and please type in the chat where you are coming from and any message you'd like to say just as we get started here.
This is good.
Thank you for jumping in.
I'm always waiting eagerly to see who put. David Taylor is the first one. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. David is one of our special guests today, so I'm glad he's in the house.
Matthew
Taylor coming in. Hello, hello.
If you can hear us okay, also please just put a TU for thumb up. I can hear you okay.
All right. Rebecca coming in from Peachtree City, Georgia. Roseanne, hello from the Netherlands. David Taylor is coming in from the UK, and so is Matthew Taylor. Thank you, thank you.
Oh, he's just flying in here.
Dana is coming in from Cebu, Philippines. Thank you so much for saying hi.
Look, they're just flying in now.
Cheryl Potter is coming in from Michigan, United States. Thumbs up from Rebecca.
Nathan, welcome.
So glad to have you from Canada.
Oh, I can hear all right. Good.
We got some good TUs. Good. Elma is coming in from the Philippines. Welcome in. Direne, also from the Philippines. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Direne. Good morning to you, but it's not your morning. I do believe it's your evening.
It's an interesting morning. Yesterday morning at this, well, a little bit later than this, because it's almost 6 o'clock in the morning right now. About 8 o'clock in the morning, we were out camping with our family, and it was myself and Joshua and Josiah, and we were sitting around playing the game, waiting to make breakfast around the fire, and we heard this wild noise. It's like, I knew it was birds, but I had never heard this before. And we looked up just to see two bald eagles fly over our head and land in the tree right next to us. And my favorite bird is definitely a bald eagle. And so that was yesterday, open air, a little cold, a little bit of smoke in my eyes. This morning, back at Joshua's house, very different reality, but still, yesterday and this morning, both good mornings.
So I have to say, I came out of my tent and the boys were like, look up. And I got to see one of the two flying eagles. And we were just in an opening where all these palm trees and other trees, huge high trees. Pine trees, not palm trees. Thank you. Huge with an opening. And out of the opening flies this bird, full wingspan, and just making this caw. It was stunning. It was beautiful. It was awesome also for us to be out in nature and for us to have an amazing time with our family. Photos coming on the social media today. I didn't have time to do that yet.
Yeah. Morning, Micaela. If you can get some headphones on for later, that would be good. That way we won't have the loop of sound going. Who else has joined us here?
Okay, let's see. So we've got Rob Jameson coming in from the UK. Thank you. And let's see. And then Micaela's coming in from Georgia. And Tiffany, good morning. Welcome in. Also coming in from Georgia. Matt's encouraging Micaela to quick order some headphones. Yeah, sometimes our world is like that.
Now, let me just say, today there probably is going to be some things that you hear that are quotable. You want to go to the Fully Live Revolution site on Facebook, and you want to type those quotes in
group
with this hashtag, far out exclamation point.
That's fully, pull that up. Fully Alive Revolution, and we're getting it out.
Because we love to see the quotes, and I know today with the guests we have on, there's going to be some quote-worthy things. I actually have my notebook here ready to go.
I have my yellow learning notebook, and I am ready to go as well because we know it's going to be good. We have some amazing guests both now in this session. We have David with us, and we have Micaela with us this morning. And then this afternoon, we have Matt and Micaela.
Right. Let me just tell you something a little bit about self-care. I've been reading some books lately, and I read a little bit and put it down, read something else a little bit. I have got into the last couple of weeks this book called The Artisan Soul by Erwin Raphael McManus. Wow.
So good.
Talk about soul care. It's just taken me to some really great places. So I encourage you, if you're ready for a bit of a wake-up call to your soul and that you are creative and why God created you. And one of the greatest signs of spirituality is creativity. I mean, there is some amazing things in here. So as we're looking at how do we love ourselves, sometimes there are some books like this that help us come back into the perspective that God has. Why did he make us? And what do we do with the life that he has created in us? And so today, as we're looking at self, we're looking at self-care, and we're looking at how do we love ourselves and care for ourselves.
That's right. So your life is a remarkable story, an adventure that only you can create.
We exist to motivate and equip you to live fully alive.
Today on this Duzie Live, we're talking about fully alive single. This is a part of our unique relationship series, and many people were like, what? Relationship? But yes, it's a relationship with yourself. So we're calling it Fully Alive Single. And we have two fully alive single guests to help us draw this out.
So one of the things we want to look at is, what does it mean to be single? I know in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, there's a lot about married and unmarried. There are some confusing messages in there as well. But I love I think it's in chapter 7, verse 7, but it's right around there where Paul actually says, I wish you were like I was, which is single, but not everybody has the same gift. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, this is very interesting. He is saying singleness and being a couple is a gift. And so we want to look specifically right now at the relationship that we have with ourselves.
All right. It looks like David's on his way into the room. Keep coming, David. And as soon as Micaela can get here, we will be welcoming her into the room as well. And I think that's really interesting about being single. You know, many people think, oh, you know, I'm only something if I'm in a relationship, if I'm a couple or if I'm a double.
Well, it's sometimes pushed from the church. It's pushed by maybe relatives that you have to, you know, move from single to double. And I don't necessarily think it's a gift for everyone. And I know some people that try to become a double when they first haven't learned how to love themselves, which usually gets them into even more problems.
Yeah, that's right. So can I see your hand just a second? When we were living in Poland, there were ladies that would come up to single girls going, oh, I'm sorry, you're not married yet. So sorry. And they would pet hands. And it was like ridiculous. And I felt really so sad for these young girls, especially who probably wanted to be married and they just weren't there yet. So, yeah, that's the way it is. So David's in the room.
So we highly value singleness.
Let's just say a quick hi to David, and then we're going to take a poll. So you guys get ready on the poll business. If we can get the poll. Hi, David. Can we hear you?
Hey, Dan and Susie.
Awesome. David, so good to have you today. Now, maybe you can just say, why have we chosen David as our poster child for today's subject?
I'm not sure about poster child. I'm not even sure what that means. We've asked David to be in this morning really because he's teaching me a lot about self-care, but I watch his life and I think he has some things to say. He's always trying to add to his knowledge. He's trying to work on physical things. He's trying to work on emotional and spiritual things. He is very intentionally seeking to thrive in his life. So that's why I thought it'd be great to bring David is because not only is he trying to live fully alive himself, but as a coach, he's helping others to do that as well. So that's David. Welcome this morning. I'm glad you're here, and I am always learning from you, and I'm expecting to learn more today.
And we know that David has a thriving or a beginning to thrive coaching practice that he's in the midst of. And he's also an amazing blogger. And it's usually Tuesday that you put out a blog. Did you put out a blog already today, Tuesday?
Yeah. Hey, guys. Great to be here with you, Dan and Susie. And hey, everyone on the chat as well. I did put a blog post out today. Yeah.
What was today's? I didn't get to see it yet.
Distraction problem. We all have one.
Distraction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to looking at that. Every one of them is always awesome. And David, while we're just waiting here, we're gonna put out a poll, but we don't have our
Don't
poll
have my
music, do we? So we didn't pack that in. So here we go. This is, what is your relationship status? And it is anonymous, so we're not seeing what it is. Are you
100%
single?
right now are single.
Are you
100%.
double? Are you
Ooh.
single, soon to be double?
25%
Were
are
you double, but now single? Or if none of those categories fit you, then you can just put other.
87% single at the moment. 12% are double. 0% are other.
All right. So we have, and everyone is welcome.
Just change. We got an other.
Okay,
and we've got
somebody.
we've got an other. We've got a double now single. We've got 9% that are double, and we got 75% that are single.
Oh, and it's still changing and
this
changing.
This is great. I love the combination that we have going on here.
Okay, we've got, let me see. I'll just take a quick snap so you can see what it is. I think that's the only way. So we have 64% at the moment are single, 21 double, 0 single, soon to be double, 7 was double, now single, and 7
Nice.
other. So we've got the large percentage of you are single. I'm just going to write that down. 64, 21.
Micaela in.
Awesome.
There you go.
Hello.
You made it. You had some hurdles to jump through to get there, right? I think our final setting, Micaela, we just did a poll. We've got 64% are single and 21% are double. And we have 7 was double, now single, and 7% other, and 0 single, soon to be double. So there we are.
All right. Now, I've told a little bit about why we've asked David to be here this morning. Can you tell us why Micaela is here with us this morning?
Yes, I would love to tell why Micaela is here. Number one, because she's so awesome. And I call her the yes girl. So if you ask her any question, her first response, almost always, I heard her last week say no because she was not ready quite yet for something. But it is always yes. She's ready for an adventure. She is a girl who lives intentionally, fully alive. She is always on a journey. If possible, she's on an adventure. And I think for Micaela, life is an adventure. And she's also someone who's very highly involved in contributing to community, because the people around her are very important. And I think we have a lot to learn from Micaela about what it means to live fully alive as a single.
Got my notebook out already.
All right. So we're so happy to have you. Maybe we can just, you guys can just, we kind of told about you. And again, in the chat at any time, if you have any questions, comments, emotional outbursts, please put them in there, because we have some questions to ask these guys and to draw out from them. But Duzie Live isn't, it is a voluntary, it is an interactive experience, and it's never the same twice because of you in the chat. So we thank you for being there. And those of you especially who know David and Tiffany, ask the hard question. Sorry, David and Micaela. I see Tiffany, and I know she'll be ready to do it. So we want you to ask the good and hard questions. Tiffany, are you there? Pop your head in and say hi.
Tiffany, you want to come say hi?
And I don't know if Matt's nearby in the room, because Matt is David's brother. So Matt, come pop your head in quick and say hi too, because we've got a community.
How small these little windows are.
Yeah,
here.
we've got community supporting our people here today, and I love that.
All right, let's lean into this.
Yeah, sure, let's do that. Okay, so our first question up, and maybe you can, in the midst of it, just unpack a little bit. Our first question is, how can you love yourself? Oh, there's Matt. Hi, Matt. There he is, popping his head in.
There's
and
Tiffany.
And there's Tiffany's hair, anyways. We saw her hair. There she is. Hi, Tiffany. So we've got our community support there with our
cheerleaders.
So, yeah, so maybe, David, we start with you. Normally it's like we start ladies first, but let's go with you because you love questions so much, David. How can you love yourself? And Micaela, you're coming soon.
So, I mean, as we're getting started, I would just say it's so good to be here, not just with you, Dan and Duzie, and with Micaela, but with people across continents in the world. And I just want to speak to everyone out there right now. Some of you probably feel like you know how to self-care. You've got this, and we would love your pointers in the chat as well, I'm sure. But maybe some of you don't really feel like you even like yourself. And wherever you're coming from, we hope that this morning you find something valuable that can help you on the journey. And my 4 words to get us started really is become a better listener. That's the umbrella term for what I'm talking about today with singleness, with self-care, with how to love ourselves. Become a better listener.
Tell us more about that, please, David.
So, I mean, love the follow-up question. I think it's so, I mean, I heard a quote, I wrote it down as well and everything. It said, everyone is a house with 4 rooms, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Unless we go into every room every day, even if only to keep it aired, we are not a complete person.
What are those 4 rooms once again?
Yeah, so that's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I really believe that we got to listen to what our emotions are saying. We got to take the time to listen to what we're thinking. What's our mental world look like? We got to listen to our physical, to our body, and we got to listen to the spiritual. You know, I believe that our bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit lives in us. And so, as we become listeners, we learn ourselves, and out of that knowledge, that self-knowledge, we can start to love ourselves.
So we're going to come back with a question to you again. How do you listen to yourself? But let's go over to Micaela here. Same question.
How
right?
can you love yourself, Micaela?
Well, yes. Hi. Hello. This is the first time I feel like I'm seeing David since he's been in the States. Well, now back in the UK. So there you know. So it's nice to be here. Overall, I think basically what I'm kind of going on, and you've said it too. Can you guys hear me okay without the headphones?
Good.
Okay.
We're good.
Yeah.
That life is in general just an adventure, and everything you kind of undertake, if you have that perspective of it's an adventure of I'm learning or I'm growing or I've made a mistake and I failed, but I'm still growing and I'm always moving forward. There's going to be so much goodness that comes out of that. And part of that does go back to me being that yes man is I will, for the most part, say yes unless I feel like I really, really can't. And that didn't used to be the case, but I think over the years, it just kind of became with what did I have to lose? If I really didn't have the capability to say yes, then that's fine. But if I did and there was nothing else going on, what did I really have to lose? And you said it too. I think self-care, one of the biggest things is community, especially as a single. And that you need those deep relationships as people, that the soundboards and all those things for you to talk about things and learn about yourself and grow. And especially if you don't have that significant other. So all that I would say is exploration, self-care, explore people, ideas, thoughts, adventures.
Yeah, awesome. And I know that we're going to unpack that through those 2 lenses. So David being a better listener and going into those 4 rooms daily and listening to yourself and others, and Micaela as an explorer on an adventure, and you always bring in community to that. So yeah, and I appreciate that we're going to be able to see everything through those lenses, because that is who you are fully alive.
Because I also think that, Micaela, something you hit on is so important, that whole risk, that whole adventure, you can't have faith without that risk. I think some people are looking for a sure thing. I prayed a prayer, so I'm getting to heaven. It's guaranteed, all that, and that's truth. But then they don't live the life. They don't live the risk. They don't actually need faith for anything. And this is what I love when you say yes. It means I'm not sure, but I'm going to show up. I'm going to lean into this. And I think that is something, I mean, for singles and for people in relationships, but that whole need to to lean forward. I love that. And I love seeing that in both of you.
Yep. And I think one thing we just want to emphasize that this is living fully alive as a single, and this is not so that someday you can be a double, so that you can be in relationship with someone, so that you can have a significant other, like you were saying.
Because Paul actually says, stay the way you are. I mean, he's very, very clear on that.
Yeah.
And so this is
like being fully alive, because being fully alive is who you are. And that's awesome. And both of you are great examples of that. And did you already say, why is it important to love yourself? And is it okay to love yourself?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you see this a lot with people, at least I do, is there is this, we have to love God. We just have to love God. This is good. And we have to love people. But I don't love myself. And I don't think, I mean, if I think of myself as a work of art of God, how can I say I love God if I don't like what he has created? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. Loving yourself is part of faith. How can you say, I mean, it does say, how do you say you love your brother? I mean, all those things are in there, but there's this necessity, I believe, that the core of it, you have to understand you are loved, you are significant, you have a purpose, there is a passion that God created for you to go for. Now get outside of the fence and run. And I think there's too many people that are so afraid they're going to make a mistake that they cease or they stop or they just refuse to love themselves. They don't trust who they will be. And I think that's so detrimental. I think it's anti-Christian to not like who you are. And so I think this is absolutely important. It's not an option.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that both of you are on a quest to know yourself a little bit more. And so Micaela, especially, I know you like to do all these like assessments and all these things that help you understand yourself. And I know psychology and thinking are really important. I know it's true for you too, David, but maybe for each of you, just take a few minutes to unpack yourself. As you've known yourself, we do something called passionality. Maybe you know your Enneagram number that you'd like to unpack for us. Maybe you know some of your personality words.
And while they're thinking about that in the chat, I would love for those of you who are following along to, if you're an Enneagram number, put it there. If you know your passionality statement, put it there. If you just want to say something you love about yourself, put it there. We would love to fill up the chat with people who are recognizing who I am and letting that out for other people.
Yeah, so I don't know who wants to go first, but you guys can even bounce back and forth however you want to do. I guess it's David first. I'm seeing the pointer.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to add something to what Dan said. It's so important to remember that we are designed in God's image. And when we recognize that, we can go on a process of discovering who he's made us to be. And for me, that's an exciting journey. I think that's what our 20s and our 30s are about, discovering really who we are in God and what that looks like to impact and influence the world. So, there's a lot I've learned about myself. I love transformation, I love development, and I love growth. And that's a journey that I've been unpacking even over the last decade of coaching, first in sports, and then really just drawing out the stuff from coaching people. I love that. There's something that really speaks to me. I'm a real big learner. 1 year I read like 60 books in a year. So I love that. And I have a high capacity for understanding and retaining information. That apparently I recently discovered might tie into my type 5 Enneagram. Tell
us what 5 is for those who don't know what the Enneagram is, David.
Well, I think I understand it through maybe one of my fears is to be perceived or known as incompetent. And so I shield that by maybe knowing a lot of things. So I'm not always very in touch with my, or very expressive with my emotions. And so, that's sort of a little bit of where I come from.
Great, thank you. And do you remember your passionality statement?
Yeah, let's see. I
make your work.
Yeah. It's I transform growth through coaching. Something like that.
Nice.
All right.
Good.
Thank you, David. Yeah, it's nice to know you, and then we know the background of what you're going to be saying next. Micaela, what about you? Talk about yourself and what you've learned about yourself so far.
Myself, yes. I went on a journey a few years back. I mean, when I was in college, one of the things in psychology is the years between like 19 to 27, 28, like the amount of change that happens to a person is tremendous. Like that's when people leave and they start to grow and they see themselves away from their family unit and all these different things, and they have new experiences that they've never had before. So I started to go really on that journey of, okay, who am I? Who am I away from my community at home? Who am I? What has God given me? And so I'm still so on that journey, and it's quite the adventure, as Susie knows all too well. But as far as Enneagram goes, and I love those assessments because I think I can't come up with those words myself. And so I like when they tell me words and I go, yeah, okay. And I can throw it away or I can keep it. But my Enneagram, and right now, I really think I fluctuate between two different ones depending on circumstances and people, either a 3-wing 2 or a 7-wing 8. And the 3 is the achiever, 2 is the helper, 7 is the, I don't know, party person.
Enthusiast, that's me.
What is enthusiast?
Enthusiast, yes.
And 8 is the challenger. So I go back and forth, kind of just depending. And then my passionality statement that I'm settling in on, I think it's about 98%, which is pretty high. And it is, I maximize joy through exploration.
That's good.
Awesome.
That's good. And those of you who are sitting there thinking, I don't even know what an Enneagram is, you're looking through your geography book or something. At some point on Duzie Live, we're going to hit that for a few weeks. To me, it's been something very confusing, and I just had to settle in. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm a 3, and on Tuesday and Thursday and the weekend, I'm a 4, and that's basically it. Because I can't follow them totally, but some of the things it says about who I am makes me lean in and embrace that more.
Yeah, and I am 7-wing 8, so that's an enthusiast with a lot of challenging going on.
Totally.
So I'm an enthusiast challenger, and my passionality is I influence potential through connections, and I think that's a bit of it. I try to cheer people on to be the best version that they can be, and that is my vision and my goal for the next generation, and honestly, anybody who I'm with, that I just really love to help draw out what could be and help them expand and grow. And I just love that. And I do that by cheering them on and by challenging the core of them. So I love that.
In the chat, even if you don't know your Enneagram or your passionality, we can help you with that eventually. But just write something that you like or you love about yourself.
Yeah, so it's good to talk about
ourselves. That's okay. Yep. You can write that. That's still humble because you didn't make yourself. God made you. So it's okay to worship God by saying what you love about yourself, because he's the one who made it that way.
Yeah, so thank you guys for talking about yourself, because I think knowing yourself helps you love yourself. And I think that's a bit of it right there. So speak to us a little bit more, both of you, whoever wants to go first. Maybe David, we'll let you go first. What values, rhythms, and community choices help you live fully alive? Mm-hmm. So you said, how important it is for you to love yourself by being a better listener. How does that look in the values that you hold for yourself, and what rhythms or habits you have to support those, and maybe even the people that you choose to be around, or the book people that you choose to be around, or podcast people? Speak to us about that, David.
Yeah, I love what's going on in the chat at the moment with people putting in their Enneagram numbers and their passionality. It's really exciting to see people embracing that, and I think, again, it's about that. How do we listen to ourselves better? And it really sits within those 4 rooms for me. One of the really important rhythms I have is exercising regularly. Now, 2 weeks ago, I took a week off completely, just no exercise, because I was listening to myself and my body was just tired. It was weary. And I just said, I need to have a break and be comfortable with taking a break. And that was part of what listening to myself in that environment, in that space looked like. I think exercise is amazing. I'm more mentally alert when I do it. I'm more focused. So there's a whole load of benefits. But actually for that week, I just needed to slow down and stop. And so, yeah, listening to myself in that area was really significant.
That's good.
Great. So that's your rhythm. What values do you have about exercise and the benefits, for example, of that?
Yeah, I mean, the value really, I think, sits on growth, on development, on health. I think that's a significant part of living a whole life. Even I think it's been said that exercise is a keynote habit or a keynote rhythm, and it hits other ones as I keep that one in place. I love developing myself. I've on and off been learning how to handstand, mainly off. I'm not very good at it. But that's part of learning a new skill. And for me, I love learning. I love developing. I think it keeps life interesting.
Mm.
Yeah.
So after you master the handstand, then you can go to the splits.
After I master the handstand, I just celebrate for about a week.
Great. Micaela, how about you? What values and rhythms do you have to continue to allow yourself to live fully alive? And community, yeah, definitely.
You stole my goal, Matt, or David. Oh, I'm talking about to do a handstand. That's my goal. To do a handstand.
I didn't steal that. I've been trying to do that since September. It's not gone very well. It's nearly a year now.
Okay, the challenge is on. Who's going to get there first between the two of you?
I think
you have to hold it for 10 seconds. That's my goal.
10 seconds.
All right. I'm happy with
straight legs. So I would totally agree with exercise. I did sports all growing up and stuff. And again, I think it hit like I'm more likely to serve people when I exercise because I have energy. I'm happier, more joyful, like just real, all the serotonin that's being released. So I would say that's definitely it. Which actually adding on to community. So I did track and field in college, which is not really like a communal sport. You're like in a team, but you're also an individual. Over the past few weeks, though, there's a community of young adults here in Georgia that we've been doing ultimate frisbee or volleyball or things like that. And I, like a few weeks back, I go, why do I feel so much more energized and fully alive right now? And it's because those two things of it's now community with people attached with a great exercise. And so I was like feeling myself so like I just had nonstop energy. I wasn't dying. Like sometimes if I work out and I'm like, okay, I'm tired, I went too hard. But this one I just like kept going up and up and up. And so I'm actually learning that that's a really big value of mine, of that communal sport. And like if there's always somebody that I can join in no matter where I go. And I think that's just a valuable ministry, and you get to know people in a different way. So that's one of mine. But then that just goes into community. And I think I was a really high introvert when I was younger, and I didn't ever hang out with people. And I made a complete switch in about high school into college. And I just recognized my deep desire to have those real, true, meaningful relationships. People that I could feel safe to talk about things. I could backboard ideas, that we could just sit and talk. One thing is like, I need those people that I can argue with, because I like to argue and think about an idea, but like somebody that's not going to get offended. So just kind of learning those like different types of people and things that I need in people has become a really big rhythm, I guess. I'm mixing rhythms and values, but so yeah, and a value of that, I think, is just it's when you're allowing yourself to reach in and pull from different types of people and get different things from different types of people. Not only are you feeling fully alive, but it's like I think that's just like it's such a gift to other people that like, oh, I get to be this with you and they get to be this with me, but we're not like fully everything with you as a single. You have those like people, and it's like, it's fun because now you're just making a real true community of different people with different gifts, different dreams, different perspectives. And I think it just helps my life flourish far more than what I could do alone.
Micaela, I just want to ask you a follow-up question, because it's amazing what I heard you say. You've been on the journey. You went from an introvert, believe it or not, in high school. I was very introverted. And when I began to find myself and understand what fully alive looked like, I was able to set myself up in a very similar way that you just beautifully described with those words. I'm going to take those words.
Well, the interesting thing is that in high school, I was much more of an extrovert, and I have moved more to introvert. So it isn't, I hear sometimes people are all locked up saying, I could never do that because I am a...
Yeah, we stick ourselves in a box.
We have the ability to grow those things. So I love to hear that.
And Micaela, the other thing I heard you say, which I think is very valuable and a hashtag far out quote in some form, is that you found, you noticed something happened, and then you said, wow, I have so much more energy. I am so much more fully alive. And then you went back and listened to yourself, what David is encouraging us to do. And you were like, what about that really allowed me to be so fully alive? And you said, oh, well, that is me exercising, and that is me in community. And you identified some other supporting rhythms and goals. And I think this is a very big piece of us learning to be fully alive, because unfortunately, we're not 100% all the time, day by day, fully alive. But as we notice and we listen to ourselves, and I think this fully alive single, as we're really learning from ourselves, then we take note and we process. Could either of you speak to how that process happens for you? And maybe I'd love to hear from both of you, just how to learn how to hear yourself and to know and grab those things and not only know it, but make those more of a regular reality in your life.
To go. I would love to answer that question. I think it's such an important question to figure out how we can listen to ourselves. We're in one of the busiest times in history. We just bounce from one thing to the next, from distraction to distraction. And if we don't slow down well enough to listen to ourselves, I think we miss it. And we lose a little bit of who we are. And so a couple of the things I do to listen to myself, really, every morning, I journal. And then every evening, I journal again. And at the beginning, sometimes it's an intention of what I'm looking to do. But at the end, it's a catch. Oh, what was I feeling today? What am I thinking about how that went? And reflecting on, like you said, noticing the emotion. I think if we can notice the emotion in our experiences, that's really, really significant. Whether that's a joy, this brought me like a next level of joy. What about it was that did that? Or maybe it's a frustration, a very specific frustration, and you think, oh, maybe that's a burden for my heart. It's something I want to give my life to. And so I really think, that's one of the things I look for when I'm coaching. Notice the emotion. So in those moments, I would catch that, try and catch what we're thinking about things. And so that practice of journaling, I really encourage everyone to do that. I was really super encouraged by Dan and Susie to do that. I was inspired by them, having done it for over 30 years without missing a day. I'm approaching 2 years now, so I'm like a baby.
And let me just speak into that a little bit. If anyone's sitting here in the chat and you're thinking, wow, I'd love to do that, but I need some help, I just want to, David is a coach, and David has been one of my best coaches.
Yeah,
and if you're looking for a coach to help you move into some of those areas, please contact him, because he has space in the schedule right now to help people move into that, able to embrace themselves, able to pour down some new values and rhythms. And again, coaching is not something where someone is telling you what to do, they're drawing out of you. So if anyone is there in the chat and you're looking for someone to help you, I would say contact David at this time, because he's I don't know how many spaces he has left, but he has some, which I don't think that's going to be available for a long time. I think it's going to fill up pretty quick.
For sure. Yeah, Micaela, speak to it. How do you learn from yourself?
Well, I just want to be a testimonial. I only got about 1.5 coaching sessions with David, but it was very valuable, those 1.5. So yes, testimonial right here. What was the question?
How do you learn from yourself?
How do I learn from myself? Okay. Part of that, the exploration part. And I didn't, so as far as like who I am as a learner, I did really good in school. Like I could learn from books and I totally got it. But I think what I'm learning more and more about myself is that I like to learn through exploration and actually doing. And I think, and again, that like 3 Enneagram is an achiever. And so oftentimes when you're an achiever, you don't want to go out and do something that you've never done for the like fear of failing. And I kind of had to get over that part of going, you know what, like I'm going to fail. Like, let's just be honest. I'm going to fail multiple times in my life. I might as well welcome the failure and have a good time while I do it. And so even if that's like, oh, I'm going to go and explore and talk to this person that I never would have thought I would like talk to, or, oh, I'm going to go, I just bought an inflatable paddleboard and took it out in the water for the first time. And I was like, I've paddleboard once in my life and you know what, I'm going to fall. And trust me, I did. I fell and I fell and I fell. But at that point, I did it and I got to it. And I did the same thing with snowboarding. I was like, you know what, I'm going to fall. And I fell and I fell and I fell. But through that, I was learning, okay, that's what you don't do. And that's what you do. And just learning those things. And so I think there is just that point of like, just getting out of your comfort zone is when you're going to learn the most about yourself. And on top of it too, is getting out of your little bubble of things. Like when I moved to Georgia now, like even leaving, I was born and raised in California, and even moving across the states, like how much more I've grown just because I've been removed from my home community is tremendous. So it's just those like, yes, they're uncomfortable and yes, things can happen that you don't want to, but there is so much that you could have never experienced or learned about yourself through those things. So
yeah,
thank you. I think you could write a book called Lessons from a Handstand, because if you're going to learn the handstand, you know you're going to hit the ground a lot. You're going to fall forward. You're going to fall backwards. And yet you keep doing it, because the only way to keep your feet up for a long time is for them to come crashing many times. And I think that very lesson is what you're saying in your life, is that if there is no way you're going to ever learn the handstand by just sitting down with a paper and pencil and figuring it out. You have to kick your feet up. And I think it's exactly the same way in life. And this is what I love about both you guys, is that you are taking risks in many areas of your life and kicking your feet up. And it's a bit fun for Susie and I to sit back and laugh a little bit and go, yep, that's another crash. They're one kick your feet up closer to success. And I think we don't allow ourselves that oftentimes in our life. If we fail, then we stop. And it's ridiculous. Failure is the next step to success. And I love seeing that in you and hearing that from you.
Okay, we're gonna take a pause. Oh yeah, go for it.
I was going to say 2 things.
Yeah.
One, I did try a handstand on a paddleboard. It didn't go over very well. I got red marks all over my end. I had somebody sitting on the end to try and keep it even. Right. I have a video if you need to see it. It didn't go, but I'm going to keep trying.
Put that in your book.
2, and this was actually a lesson from David. When David was here, he had the 5-year journal. And I'm not a big journaler, but the 5-year journal, it gives you like 5 little lines for like 5 different years on one page for one day. And then you get to flip back on that day and be like, oh, that was what I was doing that day. So if you're not a big journaler, it's great. Oh, I don't know where mine's in my room. But it's really, really cool. And then you got like a 5-year, that's my life in 5 years of just little things. So.
All right, David, tell us about your 5-year journal. I don't have one of these, so let's hear about it.
I mean, and Direne's been asking a little bit about the journaling in the chat as well. And I think for me, it was a really good start point because I knew at the end of every day, I can write 5 lines. It doesn't matter how tired I am. I've got enough time to write 5 lines. And now I've got another journal as well that I write pages in. But actually, just to get started, I just started with 5 lines. And I love now, as I'm on my second, nearly third time through, it's like, oh, this time last year, this is what I was doing, or this is what I was learning, or this is how much I'm growing. And so it's just a really good, it's a benchmark of the growth that I have, which I really love.
All right. So we're going to keep going here. But those of you in the chat, we want you to jump in and ask David and Micaela some questions that are burning on your heart and your mind. What else do you want to know about living fully alive, about being single? And I think the important thing about being fully alive and focusing on your self-care is that when we have the Holy Spirit and God moving in us and through us, we're understanding ourselves, we're fully alive, we have overflow. If we are operating with people in our work, in our job, in our life, in a vacuum where we have a lack within us because we haven't done the hard work to take care of ourselves, there's not going to be so much to overflow and hit out into community. We're going to be like absorbing from others things that if we just took some moments like we're talking about to think and to ask questions and to journal and to process with ourselves and our God and the right people in our community, then we're going to have so much more and live in a more fully alive space. So please ask your questions. I'm going to jump to the chat here for just a little bit. And Roseanne was saying so early that, Danya, it's like lying to God when you say God didn't make this earth so beautiful, so you don't love yourself. I think that loving of yourself and just pulling out just some things. Katie says she's a 4-wing 3. So she's a creative who is, what is 3 again? Achiever. Is that right, Micaela? Maybe you can help me, you guys who know this. And yes. She says, I influence wholeness through performance. And Matt says, I don't know my Enneagram yet. And what do you guys think? Do you want to have a session on Enneagram? I'm also hearing potentially a follow-up to this could be a session on journaling. So that might be another one we want to hear. We don't exactly know where we're going after today, and we rely on you to help us with that. But Matt says, I innovate solutions through collaboration. Nice. Yes, you do. And Matt's going to be on at the 2:00 one with us. So we want to invite you to come back and join us for more goodness with Matt. Let's see. I'm just trying to check through the chat.
Hannah's a 7 too.
Hannah Skirton is a 7, so she's also an enthusiast, and the 2 is a helper. If I'm right. Yeah, yes, you are, Hannah. That's great. And Matt's asking about the wing, and Rebecca is an extroverted Enneagram 9 here. I'm not sure what a 9 is. Anybody know what a 9 is?
It's just
peacemaker.
A peacemaker. Okay, thank you.
That was for my collective group.
Yes, you're supporting.
I need more 9s in my life.
Speaking of the wings, wing is a type of chicken wing that you like. I love that, Micaela. Let's see. And somebody's helping out with that. Splits are painful. There was a lot of stuff going. I didn't want to miss anything. And David's asking, which is a great one. What are the values and rhythms everyone is practicing? Can you like put that question out a little bit more clearly for us, David? What are you asking them to put in there?
So, I mean, we're talking about self-care and loving ourselves. And I suppose the question really is, what are you guys doing to love yourself, especially in this time? I'd love to learn from you guys. I am so sure that I got something that I could learn from everybody in the chat.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing for me, I have a very strong value that I want to learn to be the person that God wants me to be. So I am relentlessly pursuing who God created me to be. That's a value. That is something every single day, hopefully at every moment, I'm working towards that. The rhythm I set in my place is having time every day to look into God's word, to reflect, to journal, to listen to God. And so those two go together. It'd be crazy for me to say I want to become fully alive the way God created me to be if I don't take any time to actually study the nature and the character of God. And so for me, those two very much go together. I don't do my Bible study because it's a good thing to do. I do it because it's connected to the value of becoming more alive in who God created me to be.
Yeah.
So this is why I do it every day, because it actually is the rhythm is not just that God will like me more. The rhythm is to help me grow in a value that I have. So that's why it works every day for me.
Can I just add on there too? I think another thing I'm learning about myself, how much I love water, like just all sources of water. And that's why it was like so funny. Like when I was singing, is paddleboard a good idea? And I was like, yes, it really is. Not only because do I feel alive and energized from being in nature and water, but it's always through water that God meets me. And so to be able to create a space where I can go out in the middle of the water in my paddleboard to then hear what God has to say, it just and that's where it's like God obviously wants to speak to me through the things that I enjoy. Like that's of course where I'm going to meet him the most or most often or whatever. So just learning those things, those things go hand in hand. God is within everything that I enjoy and that gives me life. And what a double whammy when you get both of those.
Micaela, you need to get one of the Aqua Bibles. I don't know if you've ever seen an Aqua Bible. An Aqua Bible is great because you can actually read when it's all wet.
And they have the waterproof journals too. Yep. You can to do that.
Okay, I'm just going to call you out, and if you don't have something, it's okay. But what's one of the more recent things that God has shown to you in a water setting?
Recently, well, it was my birthday. This was probably the biggest one. I just saw, and it's always like through the ripples of the water. But there is another one I could say too.
Right,
there's funny, but one of them was my birthday, and it was like just the deep found. It was like how deep and like constantly the water was rippling was how deep and constant God's love for me was. And so that was one of them. Another one was somebody gave me a picture of me being a well of water and the water being like crystallized and blue and coming up and people wanting the water that was coming and flowing out of me. And so those were just like two, but it's always water. Nice. Always. It's so funny. So,
and I love that as you learn about that. And here's yet another learning that I hear you saying, that it's exercise, it's people, it's water. These are aspects that as we learn about ourselves, that we note that and we try to set ourselves up to be the most fully alive in those spaces with those rhythms and those values that are happening.
She had a few more things in the chat.
So Direne says, what's the secret of being so consistent in journaling? David, this is for you. How did you do it? How do you do it as a rhythm? I used to, but I'm not consistent. LOL, haha.
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah.
I felt like we touched on that a little bit. For me, it was just, I could only do 5 lines. And I had to do that for a year of just 5 lines daily before I felt I even had the capacity to do more. And that was okay because that got me into the rhythm and making it a very manageable thing and not rushing on to writing pages was a really significant thing. I think to add on to, we've been talking a bit about community. I think one of the reasons why it's so important to listen to yourself, your emotions, your thoughts, and who you are is because then you know who you are in community. You know who you are as an individual, but then you start to know, these are the strengths I bring to this place. These are the passions that I bring to this place. Because you've become an expert in who God's made you to be. And you're living that out. And that gives permission to other people to do the same. And that other person, that's not the same as you. But it doesn't matter because you are so confident now in who God's made you to be as unique from everybody else that you can see that and you can praise that in another person. And I think that's really why it's important to start with let's become experts in ourselves and who God's made us to be and do that by listening.
Yeah. And one other thing I'd add to that, David, I think it's Direne's question, is if you don't do 5 lines a day, do 1 word a day. And I challenge people to start with this.
Yeah.
Just at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, set your day or complete your day by what is the one word that describes you. What's the one word that you see in nature? And if you want to write more than one word, go for it. But sometimes people get all hung up. I can't do this because I can't commit to a lot every day. One word is something that takes, 5 seconds. But then your mind is thinking about that all day long. So that's the way I help a lot of people get started. Don't write a page. Don't write 5 lines even. Write one word. And then start growing that as you feel a need.
And a number of weeks ago, Kim Kukura was really encouraging us to understand our emotions. And so I started doing that. I tried to identify 3 emotions of the day. So that's another thing. If that's all you're journaling, you're just writing down your emotions, you're identifying your emotions and beginning to know yourself a little bit. That's awesome. We got a question from Matt. It says, what have you found? I'd love both of you to answer this. What have you found helps you to get out of a rut and back into living fully alive? And what have you found helpful for living fully alive during lockdown isolation? Thank you, Matt. Great questions. Guess David's going first. Looks like
I'm going first. That's amazing. I think it's important first to recognize what is it that put us in a rut. And for me, often it can be a transition or an uncertainty. And actually in those spaces, I just have less capacity. And so actually, I just need to say no to more things. I need to wheel back and find, well, these are the foundations. These are the importance. I need to exercise. I need to read my Bible and I need to pray. If I don't do anything else, these 3 things. And I think that helps stabilize and me to start back into living fully alive.
Good.
I'm probably the opposite. You go back on the things that you know you should do, and I feel like I go and I know I need to go do something else, like something new, which I actually love. I love the differences and stuff in that. But I when I got in a rut, and I was talking to Suzie too, and I go, I haven't done anything new. And it was getting me in this deep, okay, what? And so once I just explored something new or did something a little bit new, and it only took a little while, it was like life was flowing back. And then I could start to check in with myself again. And then I could start to, exercise. And I got energy flowing from that to then be able to do those rhythms that I knew I needed to do. So I think that's one thing.
Yeah.
There was a couple things that I was saying. Oh, one was, and if you can't get a word, try an emoji, right?
Right. There you go.
That's great.
But then the other thing was going back to David's point of, if we don't know ourselves, if I don't know what makes me alive, if I don't know what I need to do out of the rut, how to check in with myself, I think we do ourselves a big disservice then when we get into a relationship. And as we're talking about being a single person, if I don't know those things, if I don't know how God created me, I'm either going to maybe start to transform and think other things give me life because it gives my partner's life, and not to say that I can't receive life from what my partner's life or receives life from, but there is something that when you show up for who you actually are, what makes you fully alive, what are your skills and talents, that is where that beautiful blend with that partnership is going to grow, and you be able to do and reach a lot more people.
So true.
Yeah, and a bit of a piggyback on that. Dan and I joke about this often. We met in our 20s, and had we met when I was a teenager, he would not have chosen me. He would have not have pursued me because I wasn't the person that I eventually found my rhythms and my values and my fully alive. And I'm still on that journey, of course. But when we actually met, I was in a season where I was knowing myself and caring for myself in a different way. And I was developing into the most fully alive version of myself. I didn't call it that back then, but as a teenager, I was that introverted, quiet person who was trying to figure myself out. And there is a season for that. And until you actually know yourself, like you just mentioned, Micaela, you're able to bring your full being in. If you don't know who you are, the people that you commit to and that you journey with have a big influence on you. And that's why community is so important in choosing who you're with. And when you're in relationship, you're committing yourself, but you don't even know the self you're committing to. And so that sometimes can be really dangerous and doesn't allow you to fully develop or continue to fully develop. And when you know yourself and your rhythms and you combine those in a pathway of people that are going on the journey together in a similar direction, what a different scenario.
One of the things I really heard, and I love it, is when Micaela, you said, well, I think, David, I'm totally opposite. And I think this is so important because we spend so much of our life studying others. And then we try to pattern ourselves like others, which can be incredibly dangerous if you're not them, and you're not. It's great to see the examples, to hear from them, but one of the greatest things you can study is you. Study you, because when you study you, you'll see the way God made you uniquely you, the way he knitted you together in your mother's womb, the way you are fearfully and wonderfully made. If we don't take time to study you, we miss the fact that God did a great job on me. And I think in the church often we get study God, which is great, and hang around community, which is great, but we don't get a lot of this go into those silent places and study who you are, study what you love. And so what we really do oftentimes in our faith is we simply become copycats. We read a book, and so I have to apply this and I have to apply this, and we end up living like a total failure because we can't live someone else's life. And so I love when we can admit, that is so good, David, but I'm totally opposite. That means you know yourself, and that's very, very important.
Yeah, Irene says, I love that narrative story Suzie is sharing on the season of discovering self and develop and grow. And honestly, in every transition of our life, we have to go back to the basics again. David says, I'm back to the basic, doing fundamentals kind of guy. But actually, in every transition, every change of relationship, location, job, season of life, all of these transitions, we do need to go back to the basics and find out and know who we are as ourself again. What do we value now? What are the rhythms that can support that? Who are the people? And this learning and listening to ourselves that we're hearing from both of you today is really important.
So what we've done, we've just now completed our 1 hour, and we want to really be committed to that. If you need to leave now, you can. We're going to go backstage and just have a time where you can ask these guys some questions. But before you leave, if you have to leave right now, make sure in the chat you put your 1 or 2 takeaways. What are the things from this hour you don't want to forget? Start your journaling right here. Put it down there, because the next hour of your life, you're going to be thinking of something totally else.
Yep.
And so you need to take time before you leave this space. Just write down, what do I want to remember? What is my 1 takeaway? And again, I'm not encouraging you to leave because there's more going to happen here backstage.
But just in case you need to.
But always take time, no matter what. Even when you're in church, when you're watching the news, when you're watching a Netflix, when you're done, take a moment and just say, what did I just learn? We used to take our boys to the movie theater. We'd watch a movie. We would then go to Dairy Queen, and we'd sit in the corner booth, and we'd think, what did we just learn? And we would take another hour or so. Just what are the things we learned from the movie? What were the things that were right? What were the things that were wrong? We don't take time to process. So I would ask you, before you leave, take a moment to process.
Write your takeaways. And just as a bit of a cap on this official time before we go backstage, David and Micaela, if you're able to stay a little bit longer, I'd love for each of you to just say, if you could just say to us as an audience, how can you show up as the most fully alive version of yourself? What piece of advice, what wisdom?
Is this for everybody, or is this for Dave Micaela?
I would love David to just give a little cap from his listening perspective, and I'd love Micaela to give a little cap from her explorer perspective.
So clearly give the question again.
The question is, how can you show up as yourself? Tell us.
Wow. I love that question. And to really wrap it up, I think as we listen better to ourselves and to what's going on, we are then able to love our God better, to love ourselves better, and to love our world from a more healthy place.
Nice.
Amen. And that is far out.
I don't know if mine will be as condensed as that.
You can have the long version because you're a woman.
I think of just exploring the world, learning and growing, constantly moving forward, but checking out what is actually making me alive from the experiences that I've had, that I will have, that I'm having. Okay, so that's my cap. There we go.
Okay, now follow up.
Okay, now is just that I'm learning about myself because I'm experience oriented and not so much like, let me check back and see what did I actually like feel about this and learn about this. So I'm learning out of that the importance and the value of reflecting on this, what was good, what was bad, what could be better. And how important that is for those experiences so I can actually grow from those experiences and move them forward.
So good. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I got some takeaways so far. Keep writing your takeaways in the chat. Katie says, I've got to go, see you at 2. So she's coming back for more goodness. Matthew Taylor.
It'll be totally different.
Yes. Says, my takeaway, become an expert in myself.
Oh, yeah.
Explore who God made me to be. And when in a rut, either fall back on the core rhythms or try something completely new.
Nice.
What a great synopsis, Matt, of both David and Micaela. He got a takeaway from 2 versions.
That's pretty
awesome.
far out.
And that is far out. Yeah, so Ruth says, my takeaway is that I need to stop and process things right away. Thank you so much for sharing. Love these takeaways. Hey, Ruth. Yeah, we didn't know you were in the room. Thanks for putting a takeaway there.
Man,
That's awesome.
Just when you say that, it was yesterday for me was an incredible day of the pole experience where I was way over here and way over here. The morning sitting around
Is
the
this
campfire.
happy and sad with poles? Yeah.
I was sitting around the campfire playing a game with my boys. The eagles were flying over my head. It was like, it is that dream moment. So good. And last night, as I was journaling, I was reflecting on that. But at the same time, when we were driving back, Susie and I were in the car together, and we'd have some difficult conversation, which was very draining and very hard. I also had time to reflect on that. We don't want to just reflect on the eagle moments. We also want to think about the rut moments. Why did this hurt so bad? Why did this feel so good? Because to become a whole person, you have to realize we're going to go back and forth. There's going to be moments of pain. There's going to be moments of joy. And if we can realize, okay, now what caused this? What rhythm or what value can I put in place to help this not hurt so bad next time?
Yeah.
What rhythms and what values can I put in my life that I'll see more eagles? And I think unless we take time to stop and evaluate those moments, we'll just continually hit the walls and not know why.
Yeah.
And so I think that for me, that's what journaling was last night, is going, okay, how could this not have been avoided? We're not going to avoid the pain, but how can we catch it in a better way?
Yeah.
And how can we expand the eagles in a better way? So for me, that was one of the things, even as we were talking, thinking back over yesterday.
I can't wait to hear what you journaled because I haven't heard about that yet. That's good. Direne says takeaways: listen, reflect, study, explore, serve, and journal. Start with 1 word a day or 5 lines of Thanksgiving each day. Thanks so much and blessings, everyone. Yeah. I'd love in our backstage. I can't really turn around very well because I got to. Okay, backstage. Here we go. Fully alive. We were attached to headphones. I would love to ask you if you are willing, David and Micaela, to say a little bit more about having fully. We talked about like, oh, these things help me. What are some of the areas in your life that you know you need to be aware of? For example, for me, I influence potential through connections. And I know that's like my passionality, that are concept words that help me know who I am. This is who I am. This is what happens when I'm with others, and this is my strengths. But I know that my anti-passionality is rejection. So I have learned, and I continue to learn, that when I feel rejected, not even when someone rejects me, that is my downward spiral. And so I know I'm fully alive when I'm putting myself out with these people, and I'm self-hearing, like we've been talking about today. But I also have been learning and continue to learn what that is that stops me from being fully alive. Not just getting in a rut, but the thing that would really be the pain point to take me down. I wonder if either of you are on journey or exploring or finding something like that you are identifying or beginning to identify. What is it that takes you down and keeps you from being fully alive? And a piggyback question, what do you do to keep from that happening?
So, Micaela, if you want to make this into a water question, what pulls the plug in the tub and it starts going down? Okay, just water question.
Water. Okay, I guess you get to start, Micaela, if you're ready.
But I'll change up the rhythms here. I'll go first. One thing I think, and it's the maximize joy part probably that's influencing this, is when it's really, really hard to like see that there's a better way, or there is a good perspective, like something fruitful can come out of it. Like, and if I'm in a space where it just feels like nobody is believing that, or nobody's trying to aim to make it better or find the goodness out of it, but it's like, you know what, it is what it is, and we just have to stick it through. And I'm like, no, we don't. Yeah. We can, one, make this have a good time, and two, we could probably set things in place to where we could make this function better. And so, yeah, I think it's when, and I feel very, very drained from this like negative, nope, it is what it is. We're just going to live in through it and power through it or whatever. So okay. I think that's
so for you, it's an external group of people who are not willing to maximize and not willing to see the silver lining, for example, in the situation. And that begins to drain you. So what do you do about that? How do you prevent from the plug being pulled and the drain going down?
First, I'll start to believe it, I'm sure. And I think that's what drains me, is I go, okay, maybe there really isn't anything. I think it's usually I have to take myself out of that like situation, not like completely flee it, but take a step back. And I'm a big on perspective of like, okay, let me stop getting, because I think I am a lot influenced by people's thoughts and what they say, community oriented, what people are saying, how they're feeling, that will impact what I think is capable of happening in a situation. So when I take a step back and either find people outside of that situation that could help me backboard it of like, okay, maybe there's a better way that I'm not seeing. Can you help me see this process through it better? And then from that, I tend to get more energy so I can enter back into that situation and say, okay, there's stuff we can do here. Let's encourage each other and change the atmosphere of like, okay. But I think in it, I'm like, no, I guess there's no way out. I have to step away from it.
Good. Thank you so much for sharing. We're listening. I think that goes so well with who you are and what you've been talking about. And that, yeah, thank you so much for sharing. David, what about you?
Oh man, loads of things can steal my my life. I was trying to write them all down. I'm a bit with you on rejection, Susie. I sometimes I can deal with it, but if it catches me off guard, it can throw me for a tailspin. I also I hate being controlled, and especially controlled without a voice. And that's really tough. But the one I suppose I would really touch on is not being known. And that seems strange, but I mean, even as a coach, I give the gift of relationship. I will draw out and I will get to know you really well. But sometimes I will isolate myself in that, where I won't always let people into the emotions, into the deeper places. And even I reflected on this, maybe not so, it was actually quite recently, where I was having a discussion with somebody. It was about sport, not the most important thing. And it was a bit of a discussion, shall we say. And they said something that I'd said, but I hadn't said it. They misrepresented me totally.
Ooh.
And it really threw me. It annoyed me so much, like more than I thought it should. But it was at the root of it, it was because, well, you don't know me and you haven't represented me. And those really, and I noticed that out of a reflection on that, but this is a stronger emotion than it should be as a result of this. And so what was it? And that was the trigger to go, okay, I need to check out what this is.
That's so good.
Wow. I just heard you say rejection, controlled without a voice, and not being known. And far out. Yes. Yeah. And
everyone put all my fears and things out there.
Yeah. Thank you for your vulnerability, for both of you in that. And I think knowing yourself in the process, I heard Dan say when he had his issue yesterday, great and awful, he journaled it out. He is an internal processor. And I am an external processor. We experienced that same hard conversation in our hour-and-a-half drive. And it was tough, very, very tough. Well, I went upstairs to Joshua and Saskia. We had dinner together. And I verbalized it out because it's difficult for me to internally process. And my community around me and those people who, like you said, David, know me and love me and I feel safe with, my inner circle of people, I could take those things to them and just talk it out. They asked a few questions and that helped me so much, so that when I journaled later, I had that external processing. And so I know myself. And when I'm stuck in a coronavirus rut, like Matt was asking about earlier, and I don't have those normal people to hang out with and just do life generally with, I'm able to externally process. And poor Dan, he can't externally process everything that I have to process. I need other people, not poor Dan, but he does a great job with it. But sometimes I feel bad for him having to take so much because I have that much need. And so knowing ourselves and knowing how to do that is really important. I think we both spoke in that.
My need was to go to sleep for 12 hours. It did a world of good.
So it was a highly emotional, remember when we were talking boy meets girl and it takes 8 to 12 hours? Well, Dan had needed the 8 to 12 hours for the reset. So that's not your usual at all. So it was a big one for him. Yeah, but we have these moments, don't we, where we really need to process. And Roseanne says, my takeaway that is so important to get to know yourself better and better, to live fully alive and to explore who you are. Roseanne's taken Micaela's exploration.
Good.
Yeah, she's got a new word that like helps her grab it. Thank you, Roseanne, for saying that. Amen, Dan.
That's good.
Yeah. So David, Micaela, anything else you want to ask or answer or speak about yourself?
I would say to finish off really as a closing thing is, we've been to church, and there are some people at church you don't stand next to. You don't stand next to them because they can't sing, but they don't know they can't sing. I'm sure you've been in those spaces. They lack the awareness to know that the pain they're causing to everybody within 5 rows of them. And I think that's why it's important, because if you don't listen to yourself, if you're not aware of yourself and what you're bringing to every situation, you're not only missing what you're bringing, but also you can hurt other people. And so I would really just reaffirm what we've been talking about. Become expert in who God's made you to be. Listen to yourself. And from that place, you are able to bring your full self, your full who God's made you to be to every situation so you can show up on purpose.
Yeah.
Show up on purpose.
Reminds me of a quote I once heard: hurt people hurt people. Free people free people. If you know yourself, if you live free, you can free people. If you're soaking in your hurt, you're going to hurt others.
I think that speaks as well to the ripple effect that we have, negatively or positively. What we have is going to overflow out. Some of us who are empathetic, sympathetic, we can feel what's going on in a room. We can feel what's going on with the people. And that does have an effect. And Micaela spoke of that as well, especially for her when she's in the room with people who are naysayers and stoppers and, like containers. And David, you also spoke of it. You just don't love to be controlled. You love that freedom in there and knowing that you just can't be in a space that would control you.
So we have the empathetic, the sympathetic, and the pathetic. So you have to choose which one you want to be.
Which one do you want to be? Yeah.
Well, and actually we're thinking too, I was even like, actually, it then more extends if people believe onto me that I'm like incapable or can't achieve in a space or make it better. I think that internal part too.
Yeah. Nice.
Matt says Micaela's second book could be handstands on a kayak.
I haven't written these down. I'm going to lose them.
Right.
The first one was handstands on what? What about handstands on water?
Lessons from handstands on water.
Walking with Jesus.
Yeah, like you walk on water, but you can handstand on water. Wouldn't that be awesome? Rebecca says, finding the depth when you fall in head first. Wow, I love that. Solid title.
Wait, okay, you guys, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. I'll show it. Oh, wait.
Oh, here's.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
That was more, not 10 seconds, but you were up there.
I was up there. And then I hit it with somebody.
Toes to the sky.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm going to take a picture of that, Matt.
Handstands on water, not a solid option. Love that, Rebecca. Matt says, first one was lessons from a handstand, insights from falling many times, and how standing upside down gives you a different perspective in the world.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, clarify that. That's awesome.
Well, we're coming up towards the hour and a half. We've got a few minutes. Didn't know if there was any kind of feedback from you guys or anyone online that we want to move towards wrap up, or a story that
or
really
even
helps us
questions
move
for us, for Dan especially. He has so many great answers.
And I'll tell you if I have a value and a rhythm for it or not.
Yeah, anything else that was on your heart that you that you had thought of and prepared about? And I'd also love to hear from you. I think you both have said it in a small way. How does God play into your connection with God, your relationship with God? How does that play into knowing yourself?
I don't think I would know myself without God, to be completely honest. I think I can try, but I think my real deep-rooted passions and values for life, for people, definitely weren't there before I started on a journey with knowing and loving God. And so I think through that, he just, I don't know where I would be, but because of that, he shows and reveals things that I didn't even recognize about myself, but in pictures and water and all these different places, I go, oh, wow, that is actually something I made fully alive. And then it always coincides with what I'm good at and what I'm passionate about. And it's and then doors open and God's like, yeah, well, I made this path for you. If you're walking that, things tend to fold out and happen as they should. So,
yeah, thank you for sharing. We hear that. That's so true in your life.
I think for me, there's lots of elements to it. And in terms of, actually, Dan touched on it right at the beginning, but some people don't even think they're allowed to love themselves. But actually, to go back to the Bible and go, well, this is who God says I am, almost what right do I have to see myself differently? and actually to go, he trusts us, he loves us. These are huge things. Part of my testimony is that God unlocked purpose in my life. And I really think he unlocked that desire to learn, which is such a significant part of who I am now. And just recognizing that as we listen to the Holy Spirit, then he guides us into these spaces. And he is our advocate, he is a comforter, and he encourages us to be witnesses of who he's made us to be every space.
Mm.
And what is your purpose in life, David? How would you state that?
That was a good noise. I should record that. What is my purpose in life?
Mm-hmm.
It's in a sentence, I have no idea. In a few sentences, I might have a rough idea. It is to do with helping others live intentionally towards their purpose. Actually, that is a part of, helping others be directed and living life on purpose is a really significant thing for me.
That's good.
Your purpose is to help others. Yeah, sorry, Micaela, what about you? What is your purpose in life? I mean, I know that's such a big question, and I know we're on journey for that.
When the Fully Alive Revolution membership starts, one of the first things everyone is going to write very clearly is their purpose of life. Because once you understand that,
your why,
the foundation is so much stronger for how you make decisions and everything. So this is definitely an area. We may even hit this on one of the Duzie Lives in the future. But to nail that, and it's a very simple thing normally, but once you know that, wow, there's freedom.
Yeah. Micaela, you want to
get like time out. Oh, sorry.
I gotta go. Sorry.
Yeah, if you don't know, you can just say pass on that question.
I can fiddle around it.
Yeah, fiddle away.
I think. Well, that's why I love the passionality statements. I think it actually does really go in. And throughout my entire life, it's always, the joy of the Lord, and bringing that into spaces and places when it feels like there is no joy, when it feels like things can't be better or aren't good or things like that. And I just think I do. So it's actually interesting that it coincides with what I think drains me is actually also when I show up in those places, what I can really do is bring life in places that have no life, or places that seem like it can't be better, and how to maximize and grow that, and allow people and a space and an atmosphere for people to enjoy the life that God has given them. So I think that's one of them. Which, going back, Dan didn't answer the question of what drains him. What is his reverse
passionality? Yeah.
My anti-passion.
Yeah.
I think first and foremost, it's lack of opportunity. I know the basket of gifts that I carry around. I know the way that God is. I know myself very, very well. And when I am not able to show up into a place, it doesn't make any sense, because I begin to go down the trail then of, so why did God create me at this time and in this space if nobody needs me? And it's very interesting. That's been much more of the thought since I've left the ship. Is never in my life have I encountered so much insecurity as I do presently, just trying to figure out, God, you have led me to know myself so well, yet there's no place to unpack it. And it leads into, okay, I'm gonna go to bed for 12 hours. I mean, it leads me into those spaces where I don't show up because I don't know where to show. Yeah. And so that would definitely be my anti-passion.
And if I can just be a little vulnerable with our situation yesterday, I think that was one of the big issues. That was the struggle, for you, you're way over there.
Oh, sorry, I'm listening.
Yeah, one of the struggles for
Whoop.
okay, I don't want to be here right now, obviously. One of the struggles was the question that started our big conversation. He knew what he should do, and he wanted to know, should I have shown up? That was your basic question. Should I have shown up? And the answer was absolutely. And he knew what he should do, and he knew what he could contribute in that moment. And for the sake of the peace and not to disrupt, you didn't show up. And that began our big discussion. And that began, well, the drain pulled from the plug for you, wasn't it? That you didn't actually show up. You knew how you were wired, and you didn't show up, bringing that to the space.
Yep.
And I think for many of us, that is a reality. And when we can identify that, and I didn't know that he knew and he should have, otherwise I would have pulled it out of him, because I love to allow people to show up, but I didn't know that was his internal challenge. And I think that's important, even in hindsight, to identify that, wow, that's what happened. So note to self, when I get in that situation again, I should show up. And my showing up looks like this, and I can contribute to these spaces. I don't know, slightly vague, but I just want to say, yes, very true. We need you to show up. And when you don't, not only does it affect you, but it affects the community around as well. Yeah.
And this reminds me of a few weeks ago, someone made a comment after the Duzie live that they just wish God was more at the first place of the talk. And something that I've always had in my mind is I don't want to put God first place. I want to put him in every place. And so for me, it's like that water that seeps into every single crevice. I want God to be there in the midst of it, instead of just saying, well, here's God in my life and here's everything else. So God's the first place, but I got 2 through 100. And I think this is what I love hearing when you guys talk, even that you're not given a verse or a quote about proving, you're not proving it, but you're showing the reality of God that just soaks through all of your life. God is part of the handstand. God is part of the journal. God is part of the 12-hour sleep. And I think that's where I think fully alive is intentionally recognizing him in all things, because I am in the image of God. Yeah. And so whenever I see my image, I need to see God is in that space, like water soaking into the ground. So that's sometimes people that maybe thinking, but can you give more verses or whatever? I think we could, but yet at the same time, living life, it's like when my dad for years told me to do something, and then he didn't tell me, but I still did it because I recognized his voice still in my later years. And I think that's what I want with my walk with God, is I simply recognize him everywhere, and we walk together rather than just keep quoting back to him. Didn't you say this when I was 2? And so I see today we've stumbled onto some of those things, because I want God in the midst of everything as I relentlessly pursue him.
Far out, Dan Potter, as always.
Yeah, wait, I have a little addition to that. Like a couple weeks ago, God was like speaking into me, going, Micaela, I'm in every smile that you give people. And I was like, God, I was just fighting through this. And I love smiling at strangers, like when you're walking in the store. Well, and I can't really do that well if I'm wearing a mask, but like, can you see it in my eyes? I'm smiling, I swear. But that was one thing, is that he was saying, I'm in every smile, and that even a smile, he can reach people through me and working through me. And so, I'm really going on that. Oh yeah, God, you are in everything, in every laugh, and every smile, and so it's really special.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, response?
I was going to ask you a question, Susie.
Sure.
What's the one thing that stood out to you from this time?
Thank you, David. Love your question. I think I'm reminded, and I heard from both of you again, how uniquely we wired each of us are. And that's one of my strengths anyways, individuality, that I can see people, and I love to see people for who they are. And I am just so blessed by the uniqueness of you, David, and by the uniqueness of you, Micaela, and the ripple effect that each of you have had and continue to have on my life personally. David, I am enriched every time I am with you by the questions you ask, by the solid base of those foundations that always come up every time we're together, of your love for God and your love for people. And Micaela, you always make me want to go out on an adventure, and I'm going to try to find one today, because I also have joy as one of my fully alive ripple effects. And I need to, you give me an example of what joy looks like in an embodied person. And so those are my takeaways. Again, just live the adventure and ripple joy. And David, that stay in those foundations so that we can be the most solid and the most fully alive person that we can be.
Well done. We'll give her a far out too.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have loved having you guys on here. You know, your life is a remarkable story, an adventure that only you can create.
We exist to motivate and equip you to live intentionally fully alive.
That's right. Today, this Duzie Live is talking about fully alive, single, and how to care for yourself. May you live fully alive
as you love yourself, your world, and your God. My name's Dan.
And my name is Susie, and together we're a Duzie. Live fully, love fully, and thank you, David. Thank you, Micaela. And we invite all of you to jump back here in 3.5 hours. I don't know how many hours.
It's 11 o'clock here.
Yeah, so let's see. I got to work out the math. It's almost 8, 9,
Micaela,
10,
it's 2 o'clock there.
Yeah, 3.5 hours. 3.5 hours-ish from now. And Micaela's going to be back with us. And then also Matt Taylor is going to be with us. And David, we have so appreciated you. And I hope you can come back and be in the chat with us if possible. We love you guys. Thank you, everybody who is here live. Thank you, everybody who is here on the replay. And for those of you in the chat. And Ruth says, thank you. I've learned a lot. And Roseanne says, thank you for everything. Thank you, everybody.
And if you have special ideas for upcoming Duzie Lives, we've talked about journaling, we've talked about a few things, please send them to us, because we're looking at a timeline over the next 3 months. What do we really want to hit? And we want to hit those things that you're interested in. So please write to us those ideas.
Thank you for showing up. Have an amazing day. Don't forget to journal and love yourself.
Bye.
Bye.